101.9 WDET. I'm Tia Graham. Now, I know we're going through a heat wave, but every winter, Detroit's Clark Park ice rink hosts ice hockey. But this summer, Motown Lacrosse is using it for lacrosse programming, teaching kids how to play box lacrosse. Liam McElroy, Coach Mac, is founder of Motown Lacrosse and a youth lacrosse coach himself. And he joins me now on the Metro to talk a little bit more about a summer of lacrosse. Liam, welcome back.
Tia, thank you for having me.
Of course. Now, at Clark Park, Motown Lacrosse is teaching box lacrosse. What is box lacrosse and how does it differ from other forms of the game?
So box lacrosse is something that, if you were in the sport, you'd sort of know, but we just talk about it as lacrosse. But the difference is it's played within a rink in a confined space. And so we use it as a developmental model for our youth to have a better shot of, if they miss a pass or they miss a shot, because it stays within the confined space, they get more repetitions over time, better success rate, and it's just kind of a more fun version to train and to compete in.
Yeah. How directly do the skills kids learn playing box lacrosse translate to other forms of the game? You broke it down a little bit. Are they technically the same game?
So there's certain nuances, rule changes, different size of field, different numbers. But for us, it actually works because, as we're working to grow the game here in the city, numbers can fluctuate, right? Everybody comes out. We run a pretty much free program at Clark Park. So whether we have 25 or maybe have 15, the smaller numbers in that style allows us to still run a great practice, still include everybody in the drills. And I think the skill set is great because, normal field lacrosse that you might see in the professionals or in the high school, it's big field, 10 on 10, and the net's pretty big, the goalie's a little bit smaller. But in box lacrosse, it's only 5 on 5. The space is so much smaller. And the goalies are huge, the nets are small, and so it makes you work on the skill sets needed to sort of perfect your fundamentals. And as we're working, like I said, to grow the game in Detroit, fundamentals are key. They do take a long time to develop, but this is actually, we think, a better way to sort of exponentially grow in a shorter period of time for our kids.
Now, what does interest look like right now?
We're, so excited because we have seen growth in our program. So we started as officially a nonprofit. Actually, this past August, got our official 501c3.
Congratulations.
Thank you so much. But we've been around a little bit. We actually started in 2021 just as the Clark Park Lacrosse program. And as numbers and interest grew, we're like, all right, we need to do something about this. We need to expand. There are other opportunities. So interest in our youth program has grown year over year. We have about 20 in this group. Excited to expand to more. And then we have a high school travel program. We just launched a girls' skills developmental program. Yes. So we're trying to, do our thing, but we have to do right by these kids. We have to offer these programs at an accessible rate in a space that they understand, they know, a community space like Clark Park. And then we actually just expanded to Chandler Park on the east side. So we're just so excited to continue this work and continue to working with our youth.
That was one of the things I was going to piggyback off of was the fact that you all are at Clark Park, but you're also on the east side of Chandler Park, which is a huge deal. When I saw that, I said, oh my gosh, it's working. It's expanding. So talk about Clark Park versus Chandler Park, some of the ways that you've seen yourself developing, I guess you can say some of the practice models or whatever it may be for the different locations.
Sure. So I think, first and foremost, we have to be there. We have to show up. We have to be in these spaces. And so Clark was great. That's obviously, like I mentioned, where we started. But the first youth programming in lacrosse in Detroit history actually began at Chandler Park about 10 years ago. The Chandler Park Conservancy, Lex, Alex Allen, Yvette. We all worked very hard about 10 years ago to kind of grow and plant the seeds for a sort of travel program for kids. But, as things go over time, things fluctuate, energy fluctuates. But we're excited to bring it back to Chandler to repartner up. We actually are now sort of programming partners with the Chandler Park Conservancy again and with that original Detroit Youth Lacrosse group. Yeah. And so as far as facilities go, right, we have Clark Park, there's the rink, there's the field adjacent, obviously the building, everybody knows. But at Chandler, this brand new, big, beautiful field house was constructed actually over our original turf field where we started. So it's like so full circle. Yeah. We're so excited to be there. And I think, again, we're still growing the game. We are still, I think a young man walked by us the other day. He's like, oh, is that badminton or pickleball? And I was like, son, no, it's not. But here's a stick. Let me teach you a little bit. I have a ton of coaches here ready to work with you, and I think the exposure and visibility of it is so incredibly important. And when we're at Chandler, as it's as I mentioned, so brand new, there are so many sports programs already in there. People are coming around on the beautiful track. They're playing basketball. But they see us, they see lacrosse, and it brings eyes, it brings attention, it brings questions. And so we actually just launched Wednesdays and Fridays from 12:30 to 2. We do just free pop-up clinics for anybody who wants to come and join for the youth. So, we want to make sure we're staying there and staying visible. And then that's how these things kind of start, and we get excited to see it flourish.
Yes. I just love the idea that you all are there and visible, so that way people who are walking around, kids, young people, all ages, they'll see the sport, once again ask you, is that pickleball? Exactly. And then find out, no, it's lacrosse, and they can find out if they fit into the sport or how they fit into the sport, or even just learning something new, which is amazing. Right. So, Liam, I'm curious about where Motown Lacrosse fits into the broader lacrosse landscape. Are there other organizations and other places similar to this program?
Yeah, so we see programs like this, sort of every major city. They have Harlem Lacrosse, Bronx Lacrosse, our friends at Owls Lacrosse in Chicago and LA. There's Black Star. There's so many different groups kind of pursuing similar work. And what we understand is, Detroit, as it always is, we're different, and we like to be different. Yes. We're built different. Yes. And so our program looks a little bit differently, and we think, putting sticks in hands, creating sort of the access to programs in general will then attract the kids to then sort of belong and continue to be a part of our programs that go beyond the field of lacrosse. So academic enrichment, career pathways, field trips, all that. It's not a new model for nonprofits, but it's something that we think, being lacrosse as a vehicle for it, we can attract a lot of kids just first to enjoy the sport, right? And if, build the trust, build the relationships, and then hopefully encourage more participation in the things that we actually care about probably a little bit more, which is building that community and building futures for our kids.
I just once again love to hear that there are programs across the country that you all can actually travel to and work with those programs across the country. What is it like when you're taking the kids out of Detroit into Chicago or Harlem or wherever else you're going?
Well, so that's the goal.
Okay.
We have some plans here, working on it. But our primary focus is still growth here in the city. We can talk about major expansion, doing all these things, but unless you're doing the work day in, day out and continuing to put in the time, things fluctuate. And you have to understand it's a long process. It's a long game. It's not going to happen overnight. Yeah. And so, regionally here in Michigan, we're focusing on local field trips. We went out to Erez to play Ojibwe Bagataway with our kids last summer. It was like the most incredible experience out near Mount Pleasant. And so, we're focusing there. Obviously, eyes are on the expansion, but we got to take care of our backyard first and continue the growth here in the city.
Yes. Sticking in that realm for a moment, why is it so important to you not to just turn this into something that is a monetized sports event for kids? We see how basketball has turned into this sport where it's quite expensive now to play, right? Or we see other sports that are travel leagues now, and we're going to get to that a little bit further. But right now, why is it so important for you to make sure that this is accessible, but also something that is grounded in authenticity?
Authenticity is really important. Running genuine programs with consistent staff is really important because, for us, and it's not unique to lacrosse, as you mentioned, plenty of other sports, families and youth are getting priced out of those sports for no good reason whatsoever. I think there has been a decline in just community-based programs where kids can show up and not be forced to play so competitively if they're not ready for that yet. They just need a chance to maybe pick up a stick, or if it's basketball, pick up a basketball and just have fun and recreate. I think at the heart of sports, it is relationships, it is friendships, and it's safety and trust. And I think, again, once you have that, you allow children an opportunity to then seek what they're actually looking for. And if it is being competitive, it is playing the next level, then they get that opportunity because we'll provide programs for that. But if it's not, if it's just, I like throwing the ball around with my friends, and that's okay too. And I think we need to encourage that just as much as we're pushing for the next college athlete or the next whatever. It's like, if we really care, right, we just got to provide the space and the kids will do the rest.
Yes. It's the Metro on WDET, Detroit Public Radio. My guest is Coach Mac, Liam McElroy. We're talking about Motown Lacrosse, which is offering a program for kids to learn lacrosse at Clark Park this summer, but also expanded to Chandler Park, which is really, really cool. Mm-hmm. Now, for a lot of families, we're talking about it right now, looking to get their kids into a sport, price is often the factor. Yes, one of the reasons soccer and basketball are so popular amongst youth sports, especially here in the city of Detroit, is because all you need shoes and a ball. Right. How does lacrosse compare cost-wise?
Oh man, it is not cheap.
Yeah.
There are so many different individual pieces of equipment. Boys and girls game is a little bit different, but the sticks are expensive. Similar to hockey, you need a lot of different pads and equipment. So for us, we have had incredible support from some regional partners here locally in Detroit, as well as some collegiate partners, both here in Michigan and across the country. Everybody uses gear for an amount of time, and then they need to offload that gear, and so we'll take it. But I think the other thing, too, is what we've understood is we are looking to obviously fundraise to buy more gear for our kids, because as much as we want to intro with whatever we can, whatever we receive, eventually we want to encourage kids to, whether we can purchase it or whether they can save up enough money for their own, maybe it's a stick and then we provide the rest. We think it's important to not have kids wearing tattered gear all the time. You want to feel empowered in what you are. So if we can help provide that through fundraising, we're going to do that, because you want to look good and feel good in your shoes, in your pads. You don't need somebody's stinky gear that's been around since the 1950s, right? Let's give kids the modern thing, and we'll work on the back end to fundraise the money for it.
Yes. So this weekend, of course,
yes,
4th of July.
Sure.
250th birthday of the United States, signing of the Declaration of Independence. What people may not know is that lacrosse has a deeply rooted history on the North American continent, predating the founding of the U.S., because the origins of the sport are indigenous. Talk a little bit about it.
Oh, man, so excited to talk about this and very humbled. So, lacrosse is the oldest team sport here in North America. And actually, depending on where you grew up or where you were born regionally, the styles of the game are different. So there are different stickball styles. If you were on the East Coast, the Haudenosaunee, the Six Nations play a form that is was adopted into the more modern form you see. The sticks look a little bit similar. In the southern region, the Chickasaw and the Choctaw played actually with two sticks. And they'd grab the ball and they'd run with two sticks over the head to shoot. Pretty incredible there. And then here in the Great Lakes region, the Anishinaabe people, the Ojibwa, the Ottawa, the Potawatomi actually played with this type of Great Lakes style stick that I have here, which we actually purchased another batch of those for our kids, because we believe that, one, if you're going to grow the game of lacrosse, it's, great, that's important. But if you're not teaching the roots at the central part of what you're doing, then you're missing such an incredible chapter and such an important chapter of where the game actually came from. Whether kids are interested in the history or not, I think it's really, really important that you have the opportunity to participate. And so that's why I mentioned that field trip where we went up to the Res.
Yeah,
Mount Pleasant. So the Elijah L. Cultural Center, the 7th Generation Grounds, the Saginaw Band of Chippewa Indians were so gracious to host us. 27 of us came from the city of Detroit to go up there to play. You're barefoot. There's no pads. You got these wooden sticks. It's very difficult. But they had people come from Wisconsin just to play in Michigan. It is so deeply rooted culturally. When their ancestors, where they're playing currently, because this style in the Great Lakes isn't what you see typically on TV. But there's such a history to it. They've had ancestors die and bleed and play so intensely that if they don't see it, it's like, well, maybe it never existed, but it did. And so there's this huge reclamation effort to continue to increase the visibility, to continue to play. And so we're humbled, here at Motown, just to try to push that here in the city of Detroit, to not skip over what we think is a really important part of teaching the game. And again, it's really fun. It's like the most raw sporting experience I've ever had. It was like one of my best core memories ever individually. But our kids had a great time. So they keep talking about it. They're excited to go back. So we're just really, really excited to be a part of it.
And for you, what was it like to be on the field, barefoot, running around, playing, understanding and knowing that this was a form in which they played before this country existed?
I think, it's because you're just there. It's the grass. The goals are these wooden posts. They're not these big, metallic things with netting attached to it. It just felt very raw. And I think it took me a second, because I'm typically at this stage in my career sort of an administrator, a facilitator. I'm like making sure the kids are okay, doing that. And I was like, you know what? I'm going to play this, I'm getting in this game. I'm a competitor too. I'm an athlete too. I want to get in this. And so I think for me, it took a second, because the physicality, it's right away. They were throwing shoulders and stiff arms, men and women together. It was just so incredible. And then I was keeled over probably within 30 seconds, like huffing and puffing, like, oh my gosh, this is so intense. Yeah. But it was just so fun. I think the coolest part was after the game. I think, obviously playing was great, but the conversations that you witness, families from the tribe coming up to talk to our families and just talking about the history, the ceremonial aspect to it, it's just again, it is one of the most incredible sports experiences I've ever been a part of, and I just feel incredibly privileged to continue to help work and to push this here in the city.
Now, you've mentioned how styles varied around the country. Has the sport changed over the centuries, comparing it to something like box lacrosse? How closely does it resemble lacrosse from hundreds of years ago?
Well, so, as people came and sort of colonized the areas, the French Canadians, they sort of adopted a more modern form. They established rules and actually banned Native Americans from playing their original sport.
Sounds about right.
Sounds about right. Yeah. Colonizers, you're doing that thing. So that is where we sort of get the more modern rules, the rule sets. And so, the teams are much smaller. The games, are refereed, and they have all these different, sort of regulations. And I think obviously it's picked up, as every sport does. It's how you create the leagues and create the, infrastructure to continue to pursue it. But I think that's why playing the original style is so cool, because it's so freeing. I mean, they used to play on fields that were miles and miles long. Teams were 100 people deep. And so it was incredible. It was just sort of raw and natural. But I think it was what the game was, what is always meant to be. And so modern form or traditional form, it doesn't really matter. Just the opportunity to play and to talk about where this game came from, I think, is the most important part.
Now, before we get out of here, of course, sure. Liam, where should people go? What should they know if they want to even participate, just watch a practice, or get their kids involved in any way? What should they know? So
we have Instagram pages. We have Motown Lacrosse, Motown_Lacrosse, Motown Lacrosse Club, which is our travel club. We have a website, MotownLacrosse.org, where you can find us and find our fundraisers. And I think, the coolest part is you can just show up to Clark Park on a programming day, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, 4:30 to 6 for our youth. And then Chandler Park Wednesday and Friday from 12:30 to 2. Literally just show up, say hi. Like, we will throw you in a drill. Even if you're an adult, just like checking in, like, this seems cool. Like, we will teach you because it's important. And I think, having these place-based programs are great because it's not just a foreign place that you've never been to. It's a community park. People. So
it's home.
It's home. And that's the incredible. Like, that's the reason we do it. That's the partnerships, why we pursued them, because we understand like that home piece is so integral to that safety, that trust, and that sort of foundation that's going to allow our children to like pursue their dreams in the sport or out of the sport, but know that they'll always have this. Always.
Thank you for joining us on the Metro. Liam McElroy, a.k.a. Coach Mac, is founder of Motown Lacrosse. They are teaching box lacrosse this summer at Clark Park and Chandler Park. And we heard all the information you needed to know to let you know. You can check our website, WDET.org, and we'll have that link there for you. Thank you so much for joining us on the Metro.
Thanks so much, Tia.
Coming up, what does it mean to be American? As we've heard through the last 2 hours so far, that's not a question that can be answered easily. We'll hear from an Arab American poet who uses her work to affirm her heritage and not to beg to be here. You all stay right there. This is the Metro.